Chellie, what a pleasure to be up here with you.
Pleasure's all mine.
We are both from Maine. We go way back, but I suspect for a lot of people here, they don't have a deep understanding of your connection to agriculture or the role you've played in ag policy. So I'm not going to embarrass you by having you speak about that. I'm going to do it instead. So quickly, you are yourself a farmer. You trained under the organic pioneer Elliott Coleman.
Lucky me.
Clara's daughter's in the audience somewhere here. You worked for many years and made a living as a farmer. As a Maine legislator, you were the primary force behind our Farmers for Maine's Future program, which was a very innovative farm viability program, one of the first in the nation. You fought for farmland protection in our state. And now, as a member of Congress, you've been a member of the Ag Committee. You've been currently a member of Ag Appropriations. You've been really a stalwart, right up front supporter for the conservation practices that are in the Farm Bill and the conservation title. You've been a leader on food waste, leader on a lot of local food issues. When the House switched from Republican to Democrat in 2018, you were the critical voice in my mind of saying we have to think of agriculture as a climate solution. And that led to a lot of the things that happened in the Biden era on policy, including the Inflation Reduction Act and the money for ag there, that, as we talked about earlier today, fortunately that money has been put into the baseline. So what a set of accomplishments, my goodness.
Thank you.
And sadly, she's not my congresswoman. I'm a little bit over the line. But what a great testament to you and to the state of Maine. But the bottom line on all of that is you know your stuff and you have credibility. So I want to explore today three things. I want to talk a little bit specifically about the conservation programs that really deal with climate smart ag and what those mean for farmers and keeping them on the land. And then I want to talk about some other USDA programs. And then I just want to hear from you what you think the future is and can be in this environment. Where can we still have opportunities for growth and success? So starting with conservation practices, we all know about the environmental benefits, building soil health, sequestering carbon, increasing biodiversity, water recharge, and the like. I want to hear from you, given your own experience, about what these federal programs that support conservation have meant for farmers' direct operations, for their success as businesses.
Great. Well, thank you. I'm clearly now going to just ask John to travel with me everywhere I go.
I'll do it.
Yeah, there we go. But I just want to thank you, too. This has been an amazing day. Thank you to American Farmland Trust. I've had a chance to hear a little bit of the conversation that's gone on today and just the breadth of the work that you guys do and the important work that you do in preserving farmland, but also in the conservation sphere has just been irreplaceable, and so many good people work with you, and I've heard some of them on the panels today. So just thank you for that. Please, let's just give John a round of applause.
I'll take it.
And to Danny for bringing us all together, she's a force of nature.
She is.
And all those things are true. I've been lucky enough to be in Congress for a little while now and work on many of these issues. But also because I come out of agriculture in Maine and I worked for many years with so many of the Maine farmers and Maine organic farmers and really see how, well, let's just say, it's just so challenging to be a farmer right now. We're tremendously worried about the impact of what's going on. But so many of the farmers have been able to utilize these conservation programs over the years, whether they were doing it through a climate change lens and saying, I want to play my part and do more to sequester carbon or to do more to reduce our impact on climate change, or just because it's been a cost saver for them. And I think at the bottom line, it's just that this federal funding has been a source to farmers big and small for so many different kinds of practices, but things that they might not have been able to invest in and be able to afford to do, whether it's changing over to like no-till agriculture or using more cover crops, or a whole variety of other practices that are funded at a federal level. Some of them have been talked about today. Certainly renewable energy programs like REAP and EQIP. In Maine, they've been used on a broad scale on hoop houses, plastic houses to extend your season. I still live on a farm that grows vegetables all winter long, but not in a heated environment, but just enough, you know the farm well, just enough heat, to be able to grow bok choy or kale or lettuce or spinach or overwinter our carrots and then sell them to the community through the winter. But that's true of a lot of small farms in Maine that are selling lettuce to our restaurants or doing a variety of other things. Well, every one of those investments, if you're able to get the assistance through a federal government program, it's just not coming out of your bottom line. And what we're worried about most right now is farm viability. And we've seen, as you know, an amazing resurgence of agriculture in Maine. I don't let me go on too long about this, but Maine fed the Union Army, so we were a big force in the 1800s. You don't think about it if you're from California or Iowa. You don't think about us as an agricultural state, but because of our location, because we were populated early, we grew a whole variety of crops, and every town had a corn cannery or a chicken processing plant. We had an enormous agricultural spectrum in our state, but then we lost a lot of it because of rapid shipping or growth in the Midwest or out west. It's had a huge resurgence in the last 20 years, and a lot of that has been because of young people who are coming back and working on farms or saying, I want to do something innovative or creative, and so many of them have been better at taking advantage of federal programs or using programs to increase market viability or value-added producer grants. I mean, it's a long list. And so we're one of the few states where the average age of the farmer, if not going down, is at least stable, and we have double the number of women in agriculture of any other state in the country. So we've got a lot of great things going on. Yay, women! I can tell you it wasn't easy to be a female in the farming sphere in the 1970s. Things have changed, and thank God they have. But anyway, so I won't go on too much about it, but I just, it's really makes a difference. And yes, we've saved some of that funding, but one of the reasons we tried to increase it so much in the Inflation Reduction Act is because applications for conservation programs are way above what's actually received, and that's a problem for my colleagues that have to deal with this in states all over the country. This isn't a red or blue thing. This is everybody knew there was more money needed, and we just need to hang on to those funds.
Great point. I was in Vermont last week to the farm that received this year's New England Award of the Aldo Leopold Conservation Award. Impressive farm, but the farmer, a woman, revealed when she was there that she could, even though she's doing some of the best stuff out there, she would not have been the winner of that award. She is only making the numbers work because of USDA cost share programs. It's critical for her to make those investments in her soil health, in the planet. And the sad part of that is she says she spends so much of her time now not in the field, but behind a computer, just trying to keep abreast of things and take advantage of those opportunities. But nonetheless, they're critically important. We've been talking about conservation programs. That's only one thing that USDA has traditionally done to help farmers. Any thoughts on what you're hearing from the farm community about a whole range of other USDA programs? Yeah,
panic, total panic. So, and one thing I left out of the last conversation that I just want to make a point of, we talk about how it really helps people's bottom line, but let's not forget that these practices also encourage they're good practices that increase viability of the farm, but also yield. So I know on one of the scientific panels earlier, people were talking about the more organic matter you have in your soil, the better you're able to retain the water, the biodiversity in the soil increases yields. I mean, these are real things that also make your farm operate better or make them better able to sustain the extreme weather that we're dealing with now. Maine is in a 2-month drought right now, so this is, we're living with this every single day. So they are important for a host of reasons. There's tremendous worry, and again, it's on the it's hitting the large-scale farmers, the big commodity crops, because of some of the big challenges around the tariffs and what's happening to our markets. But my focus on small to medium-sized farms, there's a lot of worry about programs that were there to help people. And I think this was talked about earlier today, too, but like some of the local food procurement program, that was billions of dollars that had been set up by the last administration. Again, very good bipartisan to support. You don't think about this as, one or the other, but it was purchasing directly from farmers, and then providing that produce or milk or whatever was being purchased either to food banks or to school lunch programs. So achieving all kinds of goals. Giving farmers predictable markets, contracts, but also saying to the school lunch program, we know how expensive it is to get healthy fruits and vegetables into your mix of food for the kids because these are expensive programs. You can get this directly from the farmers. So really popular program, devastated because it was just cut off one night. It's all gone now. The farmers lost their contracts, even though they had already planned on them. I mean, it's just devastating. But again, it made my colleagues on both sides of the aisle suitably upset that we now have a bill going in to do that. We just have to see if we can get the attention at a USDA that isn't as maybe tuned in my opinion, to what the real needs of the farmers are. But farmers, just for a whole variety of reasons, are worried about support that they need from the USDA. Another big issue that's always been very bipartisan is staffing of local offices, the NRCS, the county offices that farmers go to.
Yep.
And you mentioned that farmers are overwhelmed by paperwork. I mean, many of them, they don't carry a cell phone in their pocket. They're not sitting around on the internet every night. And so getting into these programs, figuring out how to fill out the application or the paperwork is complicated, but your local office was often there to help you both to know the program existed, irrigation assistance, fencing, dealing with the deer that are eating up the vegetables in your field, whatever it is. You could go in there. Well, now I know from my state, but this is true around the country, many of these offices are empty. They're down to one person.
Yep.
We used to have 5 engineers in the state of Maine. We're a big state. There's one engineer left, and he's all the way up in the top of the state. So we're in a 2-month drought. You want to talk to somebody about setting up some irrigation systems. You need that engineer. Otherwise, you got to pay for private services, which you're likely not to be able to afford. They're just gone. They either, they took the buyout, they were cut in those original Doge cuts, or they've left for other reasons. So the lack of staffing at the USDA now is a huge issue and only going to get compounded in this current reorganization that they're planning.
Yeah, the cuts at NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service, have been roughly about 30%.
Yeah.
And it's mostly the people who are out there in the fields that are working directly with farmers.
And I'm just going to say, I've been in Congress for 16 years. I've been in ag hearings for, on and off all that time. And the number of times my Republican colleagues would say, we don't have enough boots on the ground. We got to get more boots on the ground, because they understood this was really true. So again, these are not partisan issues. It's just how do you run the organization? How do you provide the services for the people who are looking for the help?
Well, I want to build upon that, because you've talked about how these issues have traditionally not been partisan. And when I was talking earlier about the IRA, it took a lot of convincing, and you were one of the key voices there, both to get Democrats to say these programs are good even if we don't have the climate language attached, and get people like G.T. Thompson to realize, no, we've always supported these. We need to continue to support. How do we keep that kind of feeling together going forward to be broader than this one issue with the reconciliation bill? And maybe that's the pivot for you to talk more broadly about how do we go forward from here? Where are there opportunities in this political climate for us to continue to move the needle?
Sure. Well, a couple of ideas. I mean, I have worked with Republicans, particularly on the Agriculture Committee, but on a whole variety of issues my whole time in Congress. I'm a progressive Democrat. I'll argue the things I care about till my last dying day, but when I had a listening session for the Farm Bill up in the state of Maine, I worked very hard to make sure that I brought up Republicans and Democrats, and that I showed them our small to medium-sized farms. Aquaculture is also covered in the Farm Bill. I took them to aquaculture growers, oyster growers. I mean, I just said, come on, come see my state. And, you form good bonds over that, because people then understand exactly the farms you're talking about and the practices that you want them to see. And I think in my side, we have to continue that kind of bonding, even when we're furious at each other over the appropriations process or the failure of our democracy or God knows what else is going on today. But I would say when you're an advocate or you're a concerned citizen, the most important thing is, while there's a lot of things we really have to worry about going on right now, don't let it stop you from making sure that you call your member of Congress and say, please don't cut the conservation programs. Or here's the issue I'm worried about in the school lunch program. Or here's what I'm worried about, SNAP benefits, not covering certain foods anymore, or all the things that are going on. Because I think sometimes in a discouraging and concerning time like this, people will just say, well, what can I do about it? Or everything's failing. And it doesn't mean that we're not, making, tiny victories here or there, or that we're not working on pieces of legislation. We still have to pass a farm bill at some point in time. And I don't want people's voices not to be heard because they just decided to give up and not call because they're so mad about everything else. And you just have to keep going back to those same people who represent you, or tell your cousin who represents them in a red district, wherever you are. It's really important to continue to do that and to continue paying attention. Someday good will triumph. We will come out on the other side. We will have a lot of work to do. And I don't want us to lose everything along the way. So I think it's really important to continue speaking up. And I don't want to sugarcoat it or be Pollyanna-ish, but we are still making policy. And there are some big issues that are going to hit agriculture around farm bankruptcies and a variety of other things, and we have to continue to talking to people on both sides of the aisle and saying, well, don't leave out the small to medium-sized farmer. Don't forget about the easements that make it possible for people to hang on to their land. There's a lot of good policy at the USDA. We just need to know our Republican colleagues have the same vocabulary around using it, but they won't hear that if you don't call them up and say, well, here's a farm in my district that's, or if you're a farmer, call up to say, here's the problem I'm experiencing, and here's how you could help.
Everyone listen to this? Good
Got it.
advice.
Make the calls. Yeah.
And it makes the job of organizations like American Farmland Trust much easier when the members of Congress we're talking to are hearing from a variety of people.
It's all the difference in the world, and I emphasize it. Like, you might have the worst possible opinion about the person who represents you, but the fact is, like, let's just say you're a small farmer in their district, and you invite them or one of their staff people to come see exactly what you're doing. It'll get drilled into their head, and they will hear that information, and it will inform them the next time we're having a hearing, and they'll say, well, I did hear about this one guy who was, about to get a grant to build a hoop house, and then he lost the grant, and then this happened, or who's really being harmed by the tariffs, and I didn't know that part of agriculture was being harmed. Whatever the story is, it makes a difference, and hearing those firsthand is everything.
Chellie, you've been active in this space for a long time. As a farmer, I'm being careful here, as a farmer and as a policymaker. Some final thoughts or reflections?
Well, many of the things I just said were my final thoughts. But no, I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat. This is a really challenging time, and I want us all to remember that we're in this time. But again, it behooves all of us to think of all of the creative solutions that we possibly can. I know we had some state commissioners of agriculture up here earlier. A lot of focus is going to be on the states and how do we keep things going. I think that all of us know people on both sides of the aisle or both sides of these different opinions. I've been trying to do a lot of work recently with the Maha moms and all of the people who maybe I don't agree with 100%, but who also want to get rid of food dyes or ultra-processed foods, or are very concerned about glyphosate in the soil, or a variety of issues that I've worked on for all my time in Congress. And my feeling is, look, whether it's one of my colleagues or an advocacy group, if we have any way we can sort of share some points of view, let's get whatever wins we can in a bad time. And in agriculture, we have some unique issues that continue to be bipartisan and that we have to look at and work on. All of you are very connected via social media. Everybody is today. And don't underestimate the power that you have in using that to educate your friends and neighbors about topics that they haven't heard about a lot. Everybody posts on the latest thing of Jimmy Kimmel getting fired. Jimmy Kimmel's coming back, thank you. But the point is, make more posts about agriculture and the things you're learning today. And, they're all interesting to people. Tell people more about it and what you've been doing or who you heard from. Lift up some of the smaller players that aren't often talked about as much, but who are working on some of these issues that we care about, or who have a small farm that's succeeding, or are looking at different ways to think about food as medicine and the healthy diet ideas, and how are they doing restaurants differently or working with farm labor differently. I mean, there's a long list of issues, and people are struggling to find creative solutions, and you guys are excellent vehicles to post all those things.
Wow. Well, you came through on your final
All
thought.
right, get to work.
Good stuff. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you. Thank you. My honor.